I'm sure this is not something that you want to be doing, but you have to be doing. How much of a fix do you hope this will be?
Well, I mean, you're right. I mean, we've continued to make pragmatic decisions on the way through to ensure we support Australians, support businesses to survive and indeed keep as many Australians connected to their jobs as possible. Now, as the health situation evolves, we continue to respond to the need to provide appropriate levels of economic support, and we'll continue to do that moving forward.
So this extra package here, so businesses only have to report one negative quarter of growth, right? So if that's the case, is it rort-proof?
Well, clearly with what's been happening in Victoria, there was a need to provide more ready access to the JobKeeper program on a more ongoing basis, and that's why we have eased the eligibility requirements for the extension from the end of September onwards. And instead of requiring 2 quarters of falls in turnover for the extension beyond the end of September, we're now just saying they need to show one month, and instead of showing 3 months, 3 quarters into the end of December, we're now just saying it should just be 1.
So is that rort-proof though? If those eligibility requirements have been eased so much?
Well, we believe it's what is required in the circumstances. In the end, I mean, these are the judgments that we've had to make.
If things are so bad, and I know you're going to drop the $1,500 down to $1,200 by the end of September, why not just keep it at $1,500 beyond September?
Well, I mean, in terms of the stage 4 restrictions, it still keeps going at $1,500 until the end of September, which takes us beyond the current 6-week period of stage 4 restrictions. What I would say, if it was required to make further judgments down the track, as we have done in the past and as we are doing today, we'll continue to make further judgments. But at this stage, we believe that the phasing out of this crisis level, historically unprecedented support is appropriate, but we'll continue to review and assess the developments and make judgments moving forward.
So it is a possibility that $1,500 JobKeeper payment, which is scheduled to drop to $1,200 at the end of September, it is a live option that can continue at $1,500 beyond September.
Well, currently the arrangements are as they are, but as we've demonstrated, and as we're demonstrating again today, we'll continue to make judgments based on how this situation continues to evolve, and if further decisions have to be made down the track, they will be made. I would say that the $1,200 from the end of September still represents a subsidy of about 80% of the minimum wage. So, but look, we all want to see Victoria get on top of this outbreak in community transmission as soon as possible. We want them to get on top of this virus as soon as possible. We're all helping. And obviously, we hope that, the current settings when it comes to the phasing out of the JobKeeper support to the end of March next year will be able to be maintained. But if the situation changes, we'll continue to make relevant judgments at that time.
Well, and if recent time has taught us anything, it's that the situation does continue to change. Is it time to do away with economic forecasts at the moment?
Well, that's why we've shifted the budget from May to October, because it was nigh impossible to provide credible forecasts in a rapidly evolving situation. And that is the case in both directions, incidentally. At the end of March, we had certain views as to how bad things could be and made certain assessments on what the cost of JobKeeper would be based on what we thought would happen. And indeed, things ended up somewhat better towards the middle of May, June than we had anticipated, with the easing of restrictions across the country as a whole happening faster than anticipated. But clearly the situation in Victoria is having a devastating impact in Victoria, and it's having a very bad impact on the economy nationally.
We're looking at 3 quarters of negative growth. Is a depression starting to enter your mind, Minister? Is there a chance that Australia is heading towards a depression? Can you rule that out?
Look, I'm not going to start talking in those terms. We are focused on providing the best possible support to the economy through this period. Clearly, a key challenge is to get on top of this virus outbreak, in particular in Victoria, as soon as possible. And in the meantime, we're making sure that we provide the best possible support to business and to people who lose their job through this period.
Is it fair to say that this security firm who was responsible for the hotel quarantine fiasco in Melbourne just cost the country $15 billion?
Look, it's not for me to get into the finger pointing at this point. I mean, clearly there will be a time when there's going to have to be a proper review as to what happened and why. But right now, I mean, we're focused on the crisis response. We're focused on making sure that we work with Victoria on getting on top of that virus outbreak in Victoria as soon as possible, and to provide the necessary supports into the economy to make sure that Australians can get through this period in the best, least bad way possible. Michael
Sukkar mentioned on Sky News yesterday, he was quite critical of Victoria's handling of the Stage 4 restrictions. What do you make of the Premier's handling of Stage 4 restrictions?
Look, all through this period, I've avoided political commentary. This is a difficult situation for all involved. Everybody is trying to do their best to get on top of this. There will be a time to look back and assess and make judgments on what worked and what didn't work. But right now, I think it's very important for the federal government, state government, to work closely together and get on top of this issue as swiftly as possible.
You'd have to admit, though, that there have been pretty glaring mistakes, and now you've got unemployment in the state that's kind of hurtling towards 20%. I mean, people must have a right to be miffed.
Well, look, I mean, this is a terrible situation. I mean, clearly this is a terrible virus, highly infectious, terrible impact on people's lives and livelihoods. Of course, I understand that this is an awful period for many Australians, in particular many Victorians, to go through, no question.
Should Anastasia Palaszczuk have closed the border?
Look, I'm not a commentator on individual state judgments. Clearly with what's been happening in Victoria, it is absolutely understandable, and the Commonwealth understands and accepts that individual states will have to make these sorts of judgments.
Okay. Are you going to be going to Canberra in a couple of weeks, or are you going to be heading there next week? What's your plan there?
Well, I've just come back from Canberra, and yes, I do plan to go back to Canberra for when Parliament resumes. I mean, clearly out of Western Australia, I'm sure that people in the ACT will be comparatively relaxed.
Okay, so what, are you going to head there on Monday then?
No.
So will you have to do the 2 weeks of quarantine?
I'm not in Victoria.
So it's a different rules for the WA, so you can go straight through.
Clearly, I mean, the medical advice that's been released publicly yesterday has put in place certain arrangements for members and senators that intend to attend federal parliament in Canberra out of Victoria. There's arrangements that apply to members and senators out of Victoria do not apply to members and senators from other jurisdictions. That's right.
All right.